The universe is dying, and you're alive during the only moment it ever looked beautiful. Every galaxy you've ever seen in a photograph will vanish before your great-grandchildren can point a telescope at them. Not because they'll explode, because they're running away faster than light itself. I need you to understand something that most people never confront. You're living in a universe that's actively dismantling itself. Right now, as you listen to these words, space itself is expanding at an accelerating rate. Not just growing, accelerating, getting faster every moment. And this isn't some abstract physics concept that only matters to scientists with equations. This is happening to you, around you, and it will determine the fate of everything you can see when you look up at the night sky. For decades, I've traveled this planet, documenting the intricate beauty of life. I've watched hummingbirds hover in ways that seem to defy physics. I've witnessed entire ecosystems balanced on the edge of a knife. I've spent my life showing you that nature is complex, interconnected, and staggeringly beautiful. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what I learned when I turned my attention from the living world to the cosmos itself. Because here's what we've discovered in just the last few decades. The universe isn't just vast. It's not just old. It's empty. Profoundly, devastatingly empty. And it's becoming more empty every single second. The space between galaxies, between stars, between every particle of matter is growing. And that growth is accelerating because of something we barely understand, something we call dark energy. Now, you might be thinking, why does this matter to me? I live on Earth. I'm never going to visit another galaxy. And you'd be right about that second part, you'll never visit another galaxy. But that's exactly why this matters. Because we're not talking about some distant future problem, we're talking about a process that's already separated us from most of reality. A process that's already made 95% of the universe permanently unreachable. A process that's closing the window on the only era in cosmic history when life could look out and see a rich, populated universe. Let me be very clear about what I'm going to share with you today. This isn't a video about feeling small or insignificant. It's not about nihilism or despair. It's about understanding something so profound that it changes how you hold your own existence. Because once you truly grasp what's happening to the universe, once you understand the forces at work and the timeline we're living in, you can't help but see your own life differently. You've been told the universe is full of mysteries waiting to be discovered. That narrative is comforting. It suggests there's always more time, more space, more possibilities stretching out before us. But that narrative is incomplete. The truth is more beautiful and more devastating. You're living during the universe's golden age, and it's ending. Not in some far-off future you can safely ignore. It's ending now. This moment, this era, this brief window when stars shine and galaxies cluster and consciousness can observe it, all this is as good as it gets. And it's temporary. Most people think about cosmic expansion as something abstract, something that happens in textbooks and documentaries. I'm going to make you feel it. The isolation, the impermanence, the extraordinary privilege of existing during the only epoch when beings like us can look up and see what we see. And then I'm going to show you why that matters, not just intellectually, but emotionally, practically, in terms of how you choose to live your one brief life on this cosmic island. So, let's begin where we must, with the void itself. When you look up at the night sky on a clear evening, your brain does something automatic. It fills in the darkness between stars with the concept of nothing. Empty space, a blank canvas, but that's not what's there. That darkness, that apparent emptiness, is the most important thing in the universe, because the void isn't passive, it isn't neutral. It's alive with forces we're only beginning to understand. Imagine standing in the middle of an infinite ocean. You're on a small island, let's call it Earth. When you first arrived, you could see hundreds of other islands on the horizon. Some were close enough to shout to. Others were distant but clearly visible. You could see people on some of them. Fires burning, signs of life and activity. You weren't alone. But then something strange begins to happen. The ocean starts growing. Not because the islands are moving, they're staying relatively still. No, the ocean itself is expanding. New waters being created between the islands, pushing them apart. At first it's subtle. The distant islands seem a bit farther away. Then the ones you could almost reach start slipping beyond the horizon. Eventually, even the islands you swam to yesterday become unreachable. The ocean doesn't care about your loneliness. It doesn't care that you once had neighbors, that you could once communicate, that you were once part of a community. It simply expands, following rules older than thought itself. That's where we are. Our galaxy, this solar system, this planet, we're on one of those islands. The Milky Way, the Andromeda Galaxy, and about 80 smaller galaxies form what we call the local group. These galaxies are bound together by gravity, held in each other's embrace despite the expansion of space. We're safe for now, but everything else is sailing away. Every galaxy beyond our local group is receding, and the farther away they are, the faster they're moving. In roughly 150 billion years, anyone standing where you are now will look through the most powerful telescope imaginable and see almost nothing, just a few dozen galaxies, the remnants of our merged local group, surrounded by absolute darkness. They'll have no evidence that 2 trillion other galaxies ever existed. No cosmic microwave background to study, no distant supernovae to measure. The ocean of expanding space will have swallowed the proof. Future scientists will conclude the universe is small, static, and local. They'll be fundamentally wrong about the nature of reality, and they'll have no way to discover their error. But let me take you somewhere even more profound. Let me take you to a place no human will ever stand, the era of the final star. It's roughly 1 trillion years from now. I want you to imagine a universe so dark, so cold, so empty, that the few remaining red dwarf stars glow like dying embers in an endless winter. These stars are the universe's misers. They burn their hydrogen fuel so slowly, so carefully, that they've outlived every bright, bold star that came before them. The massive blue giants that lived fast and died young. Gone billions of years ago, the medium-sized yellow stars like our sun. Exhausted and cooled to dark cinders, even most of the red dwarfs have flickered out. But this one, this final handful of embers, they're still burning. You're an observer. Let's not worry about the impossibility of how floating in space near one of these last lights. This star has been burning for 100 trillion years. It's seen the rise and fall of countless planetary systems. It's witnessed the heat death of galaxy clusters. It's outlasted everything. And now, as you watch, the fusion stops. The core, which has been converting hydrogen into helium for longer than most stars ever existed, goes silent. There's no fuel left. None. The light, the last natural light in the observable universe, begins to fade. It doesn't explode. It doesn't collapse into a black hole. It simply dims, like a candle reaching the end of its wick, and then it's gone. What follows isn't darkness in the way you understand darkness. It's the darkness, the permanent kind, the kind that will persist for timescales, that make trillions of years look like a blink. No more sunrises on distant worlds, no more stellar nurseries where clouds of gas collapse and ignite into new stars. No more fusion, no more light, no more warmth. Just cold remnants scattered across expanding space. White dwarfs cooling toward absolute zero, neutron stars spinning down, black holes slowly evaporating through a process so gradual it takes 10 to the power of 100 years. And you, this impossible observer, realize something that shakes you to your core. Every moment of warmth, every spark of complexity, every thought that ever occurred in the history of the cosmos happened during a brief window, and that window just closed forever. When you return to the present moment, when you come back to now, you understand something new. We're living in that window. Not at its end we have time yet, but close enough to see it closing, close enough to understand what it means. These aren't just stories about the far future. These are stories about the forces that are already at work, The same dark energy that will eventually isolate our local group and extinguish the final stars is operating right now, at this very moment, pushing space apart. And to understand why that's both terrifying and strangely beautiful, we need to talk about what the void actually is. When I was younger, I thought of space as empty, a vacuum, the absence of things. But that's not right. The void isn't nothing. It's something, and it's the most powerful something in existence. Quantum mechanics reveals that empty space seethes with activity. At scales smaller than atoms, particle-antiparticle pairs are constantly popping into existence from nothing, existing for a fraction of a second, then annihilating back into the vacuum. An electron and a positron appear together, borrow energy from empty space, exist for an immeasurably brief moment, then repay that energy when they collide and vanish. These are called virtual particles, and they're not theoretical speculation. We've measured their effects in laboratories. There's an experiment called the Casimir effect that proves this. You take two metal plates and place them extremely close together in a vacuum so close that certain wavelengths of virtual particles can't fit between them. But those particles can still appear outside the plates. So there are more virtual particles pushing from outside than inside, creating a measurable pressure that pushes the plates together. Scientists have measured this pressure. It's real. The vacuum is alive with particles that exist and don't exist simultaneously. But that's not even the strangest part. The strangest part is dark energy. Dark energy is a force woven into the fabric of space itself. Think about that for a moment. Not a force that acts on space from outside, a force that is space, or at least a property of space. And what does this force do? It pushes. It creates pressure. It drives expansion. Here's where it gets truly unsettling. When space expands and creates more space, it also creates more dark energy, because dark energy is a property of space itself. So expansion creates more dark energy, which drives faster expansion, which creates more space and more dark energy, which drives even faster expansion. It's a runaway process. There's no break, not equilibrium, not natural stopping point, just relentless, accelerating expansion. Let me put that in human terms. Pick any two galaxies that are 100 million light years apart. Every single second, the space between them grows by roughly 1,500 miles. Not because they're moving through space, they're not. The space itself is stretching. New space is being created between them constantly, pulling them apart despite gravity's attempt to hold them together. And this rate is increasing. In 1998, two teams of astronomers studying distant supernovae discovered something that shocked the scientific community. They expected to find that cosmic expansion was slowing down. Gravity, after all, should pull everything back together. The universe should be decelerating. But the data showed the opposite. Expansion was accelerating, speeding up. Galaxies farther away were moving faster than those nearby. This discovery earned the Nobel Prize because it revealed a force we never knew existed. We named it dark energy because we have absolutely no idea what it actually is. We just know what it does. And what it does is tear the universe apart. Now, I need to tell you something that might seem paradoxical. You're living during the universe's golden age, and that golden age is almost over. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Stars started forming a few hundred million years after the Big Bang. They've been forming ever since for roughly 13 billion years, and they'll continue forming for approximately another trillion years. That sounds like a long time, doesn't it? A trillion years. It's hard to even conceptualize, but let me give you some context that will change how you hear that number. After the last star dies, stellar remnants, white dwarfs, neutron stars will cool for 10 trillion years. Then black holes will dominate the universe for 10 to the power of 100 years as they slowly evaporate. If protons decay, which some theories suggest they do, matter itself will dissolve over 10 to the power of 40 years. After that, the universe exists in a state of maximum entropy, essentially forever, or at least for timescales that might as well be forever. So let's do the mathematics. The age of stars, the era when fusion happens, when galaxies cluster, when chemistry can create complex molecules. when life is possible that represents maybe 1 trillion years. The age of darkness, cold, and entropy represents 10 to the power of 100 years or longer. That's 10 with 100 zeros after it. The ratio between them is incomprehensible. The age of stars is to the age of darkness what a single second is to trillions upon trillions upon trillions of years. More than that, actually. Much more. The era when stars shine, when the universe is interesting, when consciousness can exist to observe it all, that's less than 1% of cosmic history. It's more like 0.0000000. With 88 zeros, 1%. You're not just alive during the interesting part of the universe's history. You're alive during the only interesting part. Before this era, the universe was too hot, too dense, too uniform for complexity. After this era, it will be too cold, too empty, too still for change. Right now, in this impossibly narrow slice of time, the universe is at its peak. This is as good as it gets. This is the moment of maximum complexity, maximum diversity, maximum possibility. And it's temporary. I want you to really sit with that for a moment. Don't rush past it. The universe, you can observe the one with spiraling galaxies and exploding supernovae and nebulae where new stars are born. That universe is a temporary phenomenon. It's not the default state. It's an exception, a brief chapter in a story that's mostly blank pages. Future beings, if any exist, trillions of years from now, will inherit a fundamentally different reality. They'll live in a universe containing only a few cold remnants scattered across exponentially expanding space. They'll see no cosmic microwave background because it will have redshifted into invisibility. They'll observe no distant galaxies because expansion will have carried everything beyond the cosmic event horizon. Their scientists will calculate and theorize, but they'll lack the observational evidence we have today. They might conclude the universe is small, static, empty, and eternal. They'll be wrong, but they'll have no way to prove it. The evidence will be gone, erased by expansion. We are the lucky ones. We can observe galaxy collisions. We can measure cosmic expansion. We can trace the universe back to moments after the Big Bang. We can see the cosmic web, that magnificent large-scale structure where galaxies cluster along filaments surrounding enormous voids. We have access to evidence that future civilizations, if any arise, will never see. But here's where the emotional complexity comes in. Knowing we exist during the universe's golden age should make us feel privileged, fortunate, cosmically significant, and we are those things. But that privilege is inseparable from loss, because we're also the ones who have to know what's coming. We're the ones who understand that the window is closing. Let me tell you what that window closing actually looks like. Right now, at this exact moment, approximately 60,000 galaxies are crossing the cosmic event horizon. That's the boundary beyond which recession velocity exceeds the speed of light. Once a galaxy crosses that line, its light can never reach us, ever. The space between us expands faster than photons can cross it. From our perspective, the galaxy effectively vanishes. It still exists, still contains billions of stars, possibly harbors life, but we are permanently cut off from it. They could shine the brightest beacon imaginable, and we would never see it. And this is happening right now. While you listen to these words, 60,000 galaxies just became unreachable. Tomorrow, 60,000 more. Next year, millions more. The pool of observable galaxies is shrinking continuously. Not because galaxies are dying, though they eventually will, but because expansion is carrying them beyond our cosmic horizon faster than light can cross the gap. Currently, that horizon sits roughly 16 billion light-years away. Galaxies beyond that distance are receding faster than light itself, and that boundary is moving closer. As dark energy continues accelerating expansion, that cosmic event horizon creeps toward us. Not quickly, we have billions of years, but relentlessly, inexorably. Every second, more of the universe slips beyond reach. Scientists estimate that within 100 billion years, every galaxy outside our local group will have crossed the event horizon. Our descendants, if any survive, will inhabit a universe containing only the merged remnant of the Milky Way and Andromeda, plus a few dozen dwarf galaxies. Everything else will be invisible. The night sky will be mostly dark, and those future beings will have no evidence that 2 trillion other galaxies ever existed. Think about the tragedy of that. Civilizations might exist in those distant galaxies right now, looking back toward us, watching our light fade as we recede beyond their reach. We could be disappearing from someone else's sky at this very moment, and we would never know. Communication becomes impossible when space expands faster than signals can travel. The isolation is permanent, absolute. No future technology can overcome it because it's not a technological problem, it's built into the structure of space-time itself. You cannot travel faster than light. That's not a limitation of our current engineering. That's a fundamental law of physics. Even if you could somehow travel at light speed, which you can't, because it would require infinite energy, it wouldn't help. Because the space itself is expanding. Attempting to reach a galaxy beyond the event horizon would be like running on a treadmill that accelerates faster than you can sprint. You would make progress locally, moving through the space immediately around you, but you would fall farther behind globally. The destination would recede faster than you could approach it. You would never arrive. Ever. The local group is our cage. These 80 or so galaxies, bound together by gravity, protected from cosmic expansion by their mutual gravitational embrace, this is the entirety of the accessible universe. Everything else is leaving. The bars of our prison are made of space-time itself, expanding in every direction, trapping us forever in this small corner of reality. But I don't want you to think of this as just astronomy. I want you to feel what it means. Imagine you're at a family gathering. Everyone you love is in the same house. You can see them, talk to them, hug them. You can move from room to room, connecting with different people. It's warm, it's full, it's alive with possibility. Now imagine that the house starts expanding. Not the people moving, the house itself growing. The rooms get bigger, the hallways stretch longer. At first, it's just inconvenient. You have to walk farther to reach someone. Then it becomes difficult. The living room is now 100 feet from the kitchen. You can still make the journey, but it takes effort. Then it becomes impossible. The rooms are miles apart. You can see someone in the distance, but you can't reach them. You shout, but they're too far away to hear. Eventually, they disappear beyond the horizon. They're still there, still alive, still going about their lives. But you can never see them again, never speak to them again, never know what happened to them. That's what's happening to the universe. And we're the generation that knows it. There's something else I need to tell you, something that makes this even more poignant. The universe isn't just becoming emptier in the future. It's already mostly empty. Right now, take every galaxy we can observe, all 2 trillion of them. Take every billion stars they contain. Take every planet orbiting those stars. Now crush it all together into a single point. You know how much of the universe's volume you would fill? Less than a trillionth. Less than a trillionth of a trillionth. The actual density of the universe is roughly 6 hydrogen atoms per cubic meter. That's effectively nothing. The room you're in right now, the air you're breathing, contains billions upon billions more particles than the same volume of intergalactic space. Matter is rare, incredibly, extraordinarily rare. Most of the universe is void, and that void is growing. Every second, more space opens between the islands of matter. The voids between galaxy clusters, these regions of near-perfect vacuum, are expanding at accelerating rates. Some of these voids measure over 1 billion light-years across. To cross one at light speed would take longer than Earth has existed. And they're getting bigger. Think about what this means. The universe's natural state is emptiness, not as a future condition, but as a current reality. Matter is the exception, not the rule. Structure is temporary. Complexity is a brief uprising against the dominant force of expansion. And that dominant force has a name: entropy. Entropy is a measure of disorder. Low entropy means organized structure. High entropy means chaos, randomness, everything spread out evenly. The second law of thermodynamics, one of the most fundamental laws in physics, states that entropy always increases in a closed system. The universe is a closed system. Energy cannot escape. It can only spread out and dilute. You see this every day in small ways. Drop an ice cube in warm water, the ice melts, the water cools, until everything reaches the same temperature. Heat flows from hot to cold, never the reverse. That's entropy increasing, order becoming disorder. Differences smoothing out until nothing drives any process. You never see a glass of lukewarm water spontaneously separate into ice and hot water. That would decrease entropy, and nature doesn't allow it. Stars are entropy engines. They seem like beacons of order, creating heavy elements, powering planetary systems. But they're actually destroying order on a cosmic scale. Every second, a star converts concentrated nuclear energy into diffuse radiation. That radiation spreads across space, cooling as it travels, eventually becoming indistinguishable from the background temperature. The star creates local order complex atoms, light, warmth, but it generates far more disorder in the process. The net entropy of the universe increases every second a star burns. The early universe had low entropy. Everything was compressed in an incredibly hot, dense state. As expansion continued, that energy spread out. Particles cooled. Atoms formed. Gravity collected matter into stars and galaxies, creating pockets of local order. But those pockets came at the cost of greater disorder elsewhere. The total entropy kept rising, and it will continue rising until it reaches maximum entropy, the state we call heat death. At maximum entropy, the universe reaches equilibrium. Particles drift through space at uniform temperature, barely above absolute zero. No hot and cold, no energy gradients, nothing to drive any process. No fusion, no chemistry, no thought, no change. This state persists forever. Entropy cannot decrease. The arrow of time points in one direction only, toward greater disorder, toward the void claiming everything. And you're a temporary exception to that rule. Your body is organized matter in a universe that prefers chaos. The atoms that make up your cells are arranged in extraordinarily specific ways. DNA molecules storing information, proteins folding into precise shapes, neural networks, firing in patterns that create thoughts, memories, consciousness. All of this requires energy to maintain. Every second, your body fights entropy. You eat food to get energy. You use that energy to maintain organization. You exhale carbon dioxide and radiate heat, increasing the entropy around you. Eventually, you'll lose that fight. Everyone does. The organization will break down, the atoms will scatter, and the universe will reclaim the energy you borrowed. But right now, in this moment, you're winning. You're a structure, a pattern, a briefly organized uprising against the void. And that's what makes you precious. Not permanent précieux, not eternal beautiful, not because you'll last forever, but because you won't. Let me tell you where this leaves us, what it means practically in terms of how you live your actual life. Nothing I've shared changes what you need to do today. You still need to eat, work, love, create, rest. You still have responsibilities, relationships, dreams. The expansion of the universe doesn't cancel your dentist appointment. Dark energy doesn't mean you should quit your job. Heat death doesn't make your friendships meaningless. If anything, it makes them more meaningful, because you now understand something most people never confront. Existence is not guaranteed. Consciousness is not permanent. The window during which beings like us can experience reality is temporary and closing. So here's what I want you to try. Just once a day, pause and acknowledge the improbability of your existence, not in a performative gratitude journal way where you force yourself to feel thankful. I'm talking about genuine recognition, vertebral understanding. You are organized matter in a universe that prefers chaos. You are consciousness in an era when consciousness is possible. The odds against you are staggering. The forces working to scatter your atoms are overwhelming. And yet, here you are. The people you love, they're made of stardust, forged in the cores of dying stars. The warmth you feel, that's energy that won't exist forever. The thoughts you're having right now, those are patterns in matter that the universe is actively working to erase. Every moment you're aware, conscious, alive, that's a brief candle flame in an ocean of darkness, not a metaphorical darkness. The actual physical darkness of maximum entropy. This isn't about living in denial of suffering. Life is hard. There's pain, loss, disappointment, fear. I'm not suggesting you pretend otherwise, but recognizing cosmic impermanence can change how you hold those difficulties. When you understand that existence itself is rare, that consciousness is temporary, that the universe didn't owe you this moment's suffering, doesn't become less real, but it does become less defining. Because you're not just a person experiencing pain, you're a temporarily organized pattern of matter that somehow became aware of itself, and that awareness is so statistically unlikely, so cosmically precious, that even pain is a kind of privilege. You can only suffer because you exist, and existing is the most improbable thing in the universe. Here's another practice, and this one might sound strange at first. Accept that you have an entropy budget. Your body increases entropy every second you're alive. You convert chemical energy into heat. You consume order and produce disorder. That's the price of consciousness, of movement, of thought. You cannot avoid this. The only question that actually matters is what you build with the energy you have. Everything you create is a brief uprising against entropy. Art that will eventually decay, relationships that will end, ideas that will be forgotten, kindness that won't echo through eternity. None of it lasts. Heat death guarantees that. But lasting forever was never the point. The point is that you get to participate. You get to add a few notes to the cosmic symphony before the silence returns. Ask yourself, if nothing I do will matter in 10 to the power of 100 years, what do I want to matter now? Not in a nihilistic way that dismisses everything. In a freed way that liberates you from false permanence. The universe's indifference doesn't diminish your choices, it liberates them. You don't have to build monuments that last forever. You just have to build, create, love, give while you're here. Because you're here now, and building is what conscious matter does when it gets the chance. And here's the third practice. Expand your definition of time. We measure our lives in decades, maybe a century if we're extraordinarily lucky. But you've just learned about timescales that dwarf human comprehension, trillions of years, 10 to the power of 100 years, eternity. These numbers are so large they stop meaning anything to our evolved brains. But they're real. They're the actual timeline the universe operates on. So when you feel rushed, anxious, like time is running out, zoom out, not to dismiss your concerns or pretend they don't matter, but to place them in context. The universe has been expanding for 13.8 billion years. It will continue expanding for timescales that make billions look like milliseconds. Your lifespan is brief, yes, cosmically brief, but briefness only feels tragic when you believe length is what matters. What if instead of trying to extend your time, you tried to deepen it? To be fully present in the narrow window you have? The universe doesn't judge you for being temporary. It's temporary too. That's not a flaw in the design, that is the design. Impermanence is written into the fundamental laws of physics. The second law of thermodynamics doesn't make exceptions for things you care about. Stars die, galaxies disperse, black holes evaporate. And you, brief, beautiful pattern of organized matter, you fade too. But right now, you haven't faded yet. Right now you're here, reading or listening to these words, processing information, having thoughts about having thoughts. That's consciousness. That's the universe observing itself through the temporary lens of your awareness. And that's not nothing. In a cosmos dominated by void and entropy and accelerating expansion, consciousness is the most extraordinary thing that exists. Let me bring you back to where we started, because I want you to understand what I'm really saying beneath all these facts about galaxies and expansion and entropy. The universe is empty. Not because something went wrong, not because it's broken or incomplete, but because emptiness is the default state. Matter is the exception. Structure is the anomaly. Life is the miracle. And consciousness? Consciousness is so rare, so statistically improbable, that we don't even have a way to express the odds. You exist during the only epoch when that miracle could observe itself. When stars are still burning, when galaxies are still visible, when the cosmic web still stretches across observable space, showing the large-scale structure of reality. This era is ending. Not tomorrow, not in your lifetime, but on a timescale that, cosmically speaking, is remarkably soon. Billions of years from now, the observable universe will be smaller, darker, emptier. Trillions of years from now, it will be almost completely dark. 10 to the power of 100 years from now, even the black holes will be gone, and only isolated particles will drift through exponentially expanding space at temperatures approaching absolute zero. But right now, in this moment, the universe is at its peak. This is the golden age. This is as good as it gets, and you're here to witness it. And that brings me to what I've come to understand after a lifetime of studying the natural world, after decades of documenting the intricate beauty of life on this planet. After learning what physics tells us about the cosmos itself, impermanence doesn't diminish meaning, it creates it. A flower is beautiful precisely because it blooms and fades. If roses lasted forever, they wouldn't move us the way they do. We cherish them because their time is limited. Music touches us because each note dies to make room for the next. If every sound sustained eternally, there would be no melody, no rhythm, no song. The temporary nature of each note is what allows music to exist at all. And your life? Your brief, improbable, cosmically rare life carries weight not despite its brevity, but because of it. You are not a permanent fixture of the universe, you're a temporary guest. A brief visitor to this narrow window when complexity is possible. And that makes every moment you're conscious a gift the universe didn't have to give you. The universe didn't owe you consciousness. It didn't owe you this era when you can look up at the night sky and see stars. It didn't owe you the ability to wonder, to question, to understand. And yet, against odds that are functionally zero, here you are, made of stardust, capable of thought, aware that you're aware, able to contemplate your own existence and your own impermanence. Let me tell you something I've learned to be true. You are not insignificant because you're temporary, you're extraordinary because you're here at all. The void is winning. I won't lie to you about that. Dark energy is tearing everything apart. Cosmic expansion is accelerating. Entropy is increasing. Heat death is inevitable. The last star will die. The last black hole will evaporate. Maximum entropy will be reached. The universe will settle into a cold, dark, eternal state where nothing changes and nothing can change. All of that is true. All of that is coming. But right now, in this moment, you are an organized uprising against chaos. You are structure in a universe that prefers disorder. You are consciousness in a cosmos dominated by void. You are the universe, looking at itself and recognizing its own impermanence. And that's not tragedy, that's poetry. That's the most beautiful thing that exists. If this perspective resonated with you, if it shifted something even slightly in how you see yourself and your place in the cosmos, I would be genuinely grateful if you would like this video. Not for the algorithm, though that matters too, but because it tells me this message reached someone, that these ideas, which have fundamentally changed how I hold my own existence, might have changed something for you too. Leave a comment, sharing what came up for you while listening. What surprised you? What frightened you? What gave you unexpected peace or clarity? I read comments not out of obligation, but because I'm genuinely curious about how different minds process these cosmic truths. We're all in this together, all briefly organized matter, trying to make sense of our temporary existence. And if you want more explorations of the strange, beautiful, and unsettling truths hidden in the natural world and the cosmos, please subscribe. I promise to keep seeking them out, to keep asking the questions, that keep me awake at night, to keep sharing what I discover with you, person to person, consciousness to consciousness. While we still have the chance, because that's what this really comes down to. We have this brief window. You and I, we're alive at the same moment in cosmic history. We can communicate, we can share ideas. We can recognize each other as fellow travelers on this strange journey through space-time that won't always be possible. Eventually, expansion will separate everything so completely that communication becomes impossible, even between galaxies that still exist. But right now, we can still connect. We can still share this moment of awareness. The universe is vast, incomprehensibly vast. It's empty, profoundly empty. It's dying, gradually but inevitably dying. And you are alive to witness it. You are conscious during the only era when consciousness can look out and see a rich, populated cosmos. You are aware during the brief window when stars shine and galaxies cluster and the universe shows its most beautiful face. What an extraordinary gift that is. What an improbable, precious, temporary gift. So, here's my invitation to you. The one thing I hope you take from this: hold your existence lightly, but hold it consciously. Don't cling to permanence that was never promised. Don't build your sense of meaning on foundations that won't survive entropy. Instead, recognize that your brief uprising against the void is enough. Your temporary consciousness is enough. Your few decades of awareness in a universe that will exist for trillions upon trillions of years are not diminished by the scale they're made precious by it. When I walk through a forest now, when I watch a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis, when I observe the intricate dance of predator and prey, I see it all differently than I did before I understood the cosmos. I used to think these moments were small against the vastness of space and time. Now I understand they're not small, they're rare. They're the universe doing something extraordinary. They're organized matter behaving in ways that defy entropy, at least temporarily. They're consciousness, witnessing consciousness, awareness, recognizing awareness. Every person you've ever loved, every conversation you've had that changed you, every moment of beauty that stopped you in your tracks, those weren't small moments. Those were the universe at its absolute peak. Those were reality expressing its most complex, most organized, most extraordinary form. And they happened to you. You got to experience them. Against all odds, you were there. So yes, the universe is empty. Yes, it's dying. Yes, everything you can see is temporary and will eventually vanish into cold, dark, eternal stillness. But that's not the end of the story. That's the context that makes the story meaningful. Because right now, in this brief window, in this narrow slice of cosmic history, you're alive, you're aware. You're part of the most improbable thing the universe has ever done. And that, my friend, is not terrifying. That's beautiful. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.